had a little hiatus from making videos, so I wanted to start today channeling my favorite hip-hop artist, Logic, and say, I was gone for a minute, but I'm back now. Sit the beat back down. Seem like everybody nowadays, Hollywood. Oh, it's like that now? You know, YouTube, sometimes I feel like it's quite Hollywood, and I need to be a little bit more of a performer. And so that was my best attempt to make that happen. But really the purpose of today's video is not only to get back in the habit for myself again, but also to start talking about some new things. One of the more popular videos I posted, however, has been about Serratus Anterior. And I had a question this week that I wanted to share with you guys. Kyle says, great video, what's the main reason Serratus Anterior gets shut down outside of nerve damage, of course? And I had to think about that for a bit, but I'm going to read you my answer. I said, Kyle, nerve compression can occur at the neck, at the first or second rib, kind of in the thoracic outlet, or along the long thoracic nerve, which is the nerve that gives the muscle power, anywhere from the thoracic outlet down to where it innervates the muscle. So all the fascia and muscle and connective tissue around the shoulder blade and the armpit. The nerve doesn't really have to be damaged in order for the muscle to become inhibited. I kind of describe it like when you kink a garden hose and less water comes out the other end. If there's just a little bit of compression on that long thoracic nerve, the muscle will lose some power. There are also antagonist muscles that affect its function. So if the pecs, especially pec minor or the lats, or some of the muscles that rotate the shoulder blade in the opposite direction, sort of the crappy posture direction, Serratus Anterior will have a hard time doing its job. But really at the end of the day, the brain decides which muscles have power, which muscles don't, which muscles get tight, and which muscles are long. Because the brain ends up being in charge, there are lots of outside factors outside of just the biologic or physical factors that can cause the Serratus Anterior to shut down. And this is the new road I want to start going down in future videos. So appreciate all you new subscribers. Please stay tuned because I'm going to be mixing it up here in a bit. But he wrote me back and said, I have a flat thoracic spine. When I sit, I hunch a lot, but I don't have a kyphosis, which means like a rounded thoracic spine. He just habitually sits that way. When he's sitting upright, he says he doesn't have much of a forward curve. He feels like his shoulders are rounded, and he's wondering if serratus work is good because he's worried that it might bring him forward more posturally. And because he plays volleyball, he's very chest and lat dominant already, just like anybody who's playing racket sports. I want to address those concerns and hopefully help to give all of you a better feel for what Serratus Anterior does and demystify some of its function, because it is kind of a strange muscle anatomically and in function. So the question was, I have tight pecs, I have tight lats, which we know tends to sort of result in this forward tipped kyphotic posture, and this viewer, Kyle, feels like he's in that position a lot. What that does is it takes the shoulder blades, which if you were looking at my back, you'd kind of be seeing my shoulder blade here and here. It takes them and it tips them forward. So the top of the shoulder blade ends up going forward, the bottom of the shoulder blade ends up going back. And if you look at someone who's in this posture from the back, this is what the shoulder blades will look like. Because the pecs attach to the front of the shoulder, and because the lats are also emphasizing this is going to reinforce this position. Now, Serratus Anterior wants to bring the shoulder blades back and bring them more into a vertical orientation, not just that muscle, but that's one of a few that helps to correct that position. So if we're training Serratus Anterior correctly, and we talked about how being 90 degrees or above with your shoulder is where you're going to get the best activation of Serratus Anterior. If we're doing that correctly, it's going to take those shoulder blades and it's going to reorient them. So the bottom, we call it the inferior angle of the shoulder blade, ends up coming forward, and the top that's being pulled forward by the pecs and lats ends up coming back into a better posture, more into this orientation with the shoulder blade. And if I bring my arm up, it even reinforces that more, lengthening the pecs, lengthening the lats as they come up forward into the shoulder, and ultimately bringing the power back into that muscle during some of your movements. I want to run to the gym and I want to show you another one of my favorite corrective exercises for serratus and how that fits into some really common weightlifting or CrossFit movements. Okay, so I like this variation because it allows you to work the serratus with the elbow bent, like you'd be in a front squat position, but also it allows you to get above 90 degrees and really feel what that serratus anterior is doing. So I'm going to hook this around my elbow and stagger my feet so that my left foot's in front of my right. Hook it around my right elbow. I'm going to bring my arm, I don't know, just above shoulder height with my hand resting on my neck. And then I'm going to lift my chest and try to reach my arm, reach my humerus out this way, like I'm reaching up towards the corner of the ceiling. Now when I do that, my pec and my lat are actually quite relaxed. So I'm able to recruit my serratus anterior to reorient my shoulder blade so it's coming back into this nice position. I'm lifting my chest posturally and I'm encouraging the activation of that muscle just above the 90-degree mark. And it's quite tiring after you do a number of reps, but you can monitor your pec and your lat to make sure they're not contributing. Now you can probably see as I do this on the other arm, the applicability of this to a front squat where you're trying to keep a high elbow as you hit the bottom of your squat. The other place this is really helpful is with a handstand, or anytime you're pressing overhead and you're trying to get your head through and trying to get full extension, full overhead reach of your shoulders, which really depends on your ability to get that shoulder blade reoriented so that you can receive that weight overhead. Serratus anterior is a huge part of that. And so this is a nice way to reinforce that feeling of the shoulder blade kind of coming around as serratus anterior pulls it into the right position so you can support that load. Of course, you want to be at a higher shoulder elevation to work on that more specific in a handstand position. But if you watch someone do a handstand with no shirt on, you'll see this massive serratus anterior involvement if they're in the right position. So I realize that serratus anterior is kind of a funny muscle to understand. It's hard to see it, it's hard to feel it. Know that it doesn't do its job in isolation from other muscles like the low traps, which I've made some videos about in the past. And also know that there are lots of functional activities like front squatting and handstands that really reinforce good function of that muscle. And there are plenty of other gym exercises as well that help to get you out of this pec and lat dominant posture and into a little bit more healthy shoulder blade position. So work with your physical therapist, work with your training professional to help you learn to feel this in your body and get some movements in your programming that really reinforce good function and good posture. Thanks for tuning back in, you guys. As I said, I'm going to try to stay motivated, make this a habit, and I'm going to start talking more and more about pain and function and how dysfunction shows up in the body, the type of dysfunction that's driven more by the brain than is driven by physical tissue damage or structural problems. So stay tuned. Click the like button if you like today's video, and take a second to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I'll see you next time.